Hello, so I'm back for part 3. So, I guess with this one, I've done a little more of the modeling. I created a work area here. There's kind of two ways to create a work area. So, if I go into a project explorer here, so you can see I have this one here. So that is what I use as my work area. Now there is a work area here, which is useful, but I don't find it any more useful than this work area, so I just kind of stick to this. So as you can see, I can drag this box up and down to see more elements. You can do the same with the other one. It's probably basically the similar thing. It's an easy enough tool. I don't use it, so if you just click on it, it'll basically tell you down in the bottom, specify first point. So just pick anywhere, specify second point, and let's do medium. And you can see anything outside the box is in medium. So this is the box here, and you can drag it up and down so you can see the visibility of different things. So you can see that those elements have disappeared. Haven't used it in a while actually, so I'm trying to see. So if you go over here, you can turn off. Oh, you know what the problem is? I still have this activated. That's why I was wondering. Alright, so turn that off. And now let's try it and see. Sorry, I'm on my laptop here, so I've lost my references. I'm not going to bother to re-enter those. Alright. So this is your work area box. Level of detail, medium. So it doesn't seem to be doing anything right now. So let's extend it up, see what happens. There, so hit the light bulb there and it comes on, and there you can see. So it is useful. Maybe I'll start using it a little more. And it frees you up. Then it turns off a lot of these connections and it frees you up some of your space. But to be honest, I'd prefer to just not see that at all. So you can change your level of detail to low, which is just lines, medium. I'm sure it'd be useful for some people. I just don't see the need. And high, so it shows you connections, but everything, there's no bolts or anything. So it's pretty good, I guess. So I'm gonna delete it because I don't use it anyway. So you might want to use it. So let me turn everything on. Alright, let me go to hidden. Right, so I have not received information yet on the foundation. I do have an image of it here somewhere, so this is it. So somebody else was supposed to do this project, but it didn't work out for them, so we're doing it now. So it's an extension, would you believe? Big house. So let me close that down. And alright, so what I'll do is I'll put in some connections. So you can see I have some connections in here already. Basically what I've done is I've just put in shear connections over here. So I'm not going to get into the modeling too much. I could spend, the videos will be way too long. So I've just done some work off screen. So basically these are shear connections. So I created one and then I copied it around. So, sorry, I'm just getting distracted by my background. It should be black, and it's not black. Let me just go to options. And and drafting, display, sorry, colors. See, it's not quite black. This is fine, but you can't see some lines sometimes, and it does bother me, so I go all the way to black. Ah, that's better. Alright, that just suits my eyes better, so whatever you like yourself. So what I'll do is I'll do the couple of base plate connections. These walls are still just drawn in as solids because I still haven't really clarified anything. So a lot of times I will just draw in the walls as solids, and then at the very end when the walls are set, I go back and spend maybe an hour putting the walls in as concrete walls. I do that now and then add the features, and it just behaves a little better later on. So I would recommend that. So for now I'm on hidden view. You know, I think that's maybe why it was looking up in a different color. But so what I'm going to do is activate this box again. And I'm going to go down to these base connections, and what we'll do is we'll add a connection here. So I have previously added the connection. You can see it over here. So there's two of them in. So this is not governed by me. They already have the anchor rods in, so these are just going to be basically, I'll turn these off, behavior, use for collision. So I can use it for collision. I don't want to use it for lists. It's used for numbering. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. The guy will know. I'll tell him, you know, bring the anchors. He might need to re-drill some of these. So maybe we should leave these on it. So that depends what you want to do. So use for lists, not use for lists. All right, I'm going to leave it on for now. So we want to copy this around. So basically I've put in this connection, and if I go into the connection, you can see I think the bolts were 5 1/4 either way. So go to your base plate, and I have it governed by the base plate thickness. I want 1 inch of grout. So I have the column shortened by a value of 2 inches. So 1 inch for the base plate and 1 inch for the grout. You can switch to beam ends. Like I say, I won't go into this too in depth because there is other videos there on connections, and there's a lot in it. So you can see 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. That's the way the anchors are set. Now the anchor cages are set, but they're in the wrong places, so I'm going to have to move all these later, but I'll put them in first and then move them. So I have this put in here. Now what I like to do, I don't like how it's controlled well in here. It's like, so change that to all around. Make sure you do all around on that, right? So when I click on this, see, it's going to be a double fillet weld all around. But that's not what I want, right? I don't want a double fillet weld all around. So go back in, base plate, welds, and change that to fillet weld. So change that. So that might be set. So what I'm going to do now is I will save that. So you can name this as well. So we might name this as type C. I think it was on his drawings. So we can name that and then go into the library and we can save that. So as you can see, I have that saved already, but I had the wrong weld symbol in there. So what I'll do is go back in and save it, and I will delete that line, and I'll put this one in. Okay, and I will, that's good. I'll close that. So now I want to copy this around. First of all, I need some grout here. Now you can try to add a plate inside here if you want. So let's go in here, plates and stiffeners, shim plate. So I could put in a shim plate. Let's see how this works. So I want a group of 1 and a thickness of 1. So that can be my grout, right? It's not giving me any way to control the model roll on this. So let's just close this for a second. and come in here, name, and you can't change that, it's a shim plate. So what I'll do is, I don't want to do that, so what I generally do is I'll just create a plate manually, and so I'll just set my UCS to the bottom of that plate, and then I'll go into objects, create a plate by 2 points, and it's going to be these 2 points. And then we're going to see what size that plate is, and then I'm going to make it a 1/2 inch bigger. So a 1/4 inch either side. It's up to you what you want to do. So I'll do 1/4 inch either side. And 1/2 inch, I want that to be 1 inch. And I want that to be concrete. I can put it in as concrete. Now, in my previous version, I had grout. So what I'll do is I'll actually, no, I didn't want it up there, obviously, so I'm going to reposition that down below. So I want to change this to grout, right? So if I want to add a model role, what I'm going to do is go into Home, Management Tools, Object Property Editor, Model Roles, just pick any of these. I want to do a new one. I want to call it grout. And what group do I want it in? Plates and grating will do. All linear, coplanar, all concrete objects. So plates and grating will do. Apply, close it, update the sentence. I like to click on this twice. Click on this, and we're going to go to naming, and we'll come in here and type in G. Type G twice to get you out of the top level. We can see we have grout there. So now it's going to be a model role of grout. Now, originally I was doing material, right? So I want to add a new material. So let's have a look at that. Let's go back into the management tools. Materials. So if we scroll down here, we had wood. You know what, I was looking for concrete, right? It doesn't really matter, I don't think. So, just peace of mind, I like to pick one that's something like it. So, concrete. And you have the density and everything, and I don't really know if that matters. So, I'm going to put it in the concrete group. I'm going to call it grout. So, you know, people complain a lot about advanced steel, but you know, you've got a lot of control, so, you know, I feel it's good. It just takes a long time to learn. I mean, there should be easier ways to learn this. And then update your sentence again, or your, you know what's bothering me is these plates. Let me change these plates. I like them to be yellow. Something like that. That's a bit yellow, but it'll do. Okay, and now I'm going to double click on this, and then we'll go to materials, and there's grout. So we want that to be grout. So there you go. So the material is going to come up as grout. So if you want to, I mean, you don't really need to go to that extent. So I don't need to put holes in this, right? I'm not too worried. We can come in here, user attributes, behavior, use for numbering, use for lists, no. Use for collision, no, so it won't matter that it's hitting these. You could also, I mean, add it to this connection, and it would have holes in it, but that's depending on what. That's actually what I usually do, but it's up to you. So I've done that. Now what else do I need to do? Naming, grout, fabrication, no. Alright, so look, if you wanted to put the amount of grout on a list, you could. So now the next thing is I want to put that on a layer, right? So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go to concrete. So let's pick concrete, add a new one, and let's call it grout. Now, when you start doing this, take notes when you do this. So if I add this grout, and this is something I add regularly, and PDF was a new layer, just take a note to the side that you've done a PDF layer and a grout layer. And then when you're finished at the end of the day or the next morning, go into your template file, open your template file, and add grout and add PDF layers. The model roles will be there now because they're in your system, but you know, you want to update your template as you go along, so it's important to learn how to do these things. So that's good. So now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go to grout, and I'm going to put that on the grout layer. And just to keep all things equal, now these are things obviously that take a little bit of time, so it just makes it a little bit easier when you get to your drawings. So some people might say, well, this is a little time consuming, right? And it is, but it'll end up being worth it, I think. 0.25, and then I'm going to do 1 inch here. So I'm going to cut the plate, make it look like it's grout packed in there. That's kind of the idea. And almost all the plates, all the columns this size are there is a custom command also for continuing these commands. Now, a good practice also is, I would recommend just hitting that, come over here to your quick views and turn off those features. Every little feature you turn off is going to speed up your system a little, or at least I would say not slow it down, right? So let's turn off this wall. So there's a concrete wall here, because every time I orbit I can't see it. Hide objects. Okay, so now when I orbit I'm good. So now I want to copy this. So I want to copy this as I'm going to call it master slave. That's what mother daughter, I guess they call it now. So let's just copy this over to here. Now if I do this, every time it asks me, do I want to do an additional concrete object? No. And that's fine. And I generally like to do these one at a time. I'll generally do this one at a time. But I think if you do here and do multiple, especially with this column command, you could pick all the columns, and I think it only asks you once. So let me see. Maybe it doesn't even ask you because there's more than one. Yeah, so it doesn't even ask you because there's more than one. And then I'm just going to come back here and copy selection, and then I'm going to copy my grout around. Now, sometimes I feel like I definitely at the start, you kind of rush the modeling, you know, to get approvals out, and then you have to go back and fix stuff. But it'll help you in the long run, not drawing in little lines and trying to get some hatching in and things like that. You could also do this as concrete. It actually might work better as concrete now that I'm thinking about it. I should probably put this in as a piece of concrete. So you could do that. It might actually work out better for your hatching on the drawing. So, like, as you know from me talking, I'm still trying to figure these things out. So I feel like I'm at about 60%. So if I can get better, that's a good thing. We don't want to be stuck in one place. So keep moving, keep learning. Alright, so that's all them in. I won't worry about them. I would suggest trying them as concrete. So basically just come up to extended modeling, objects, and you can just go to concrete here, and we can do the same thing. It just basically is putting in a plate. Only advanced steel treats it like concrete, and I guess it's wherever the UCS is right there. And we can do the thickness of 1 inch, and again you can do material of grout and just do the same feature on it. And I would recommend that actually. So maybe do that instead. It's not going to take up any more room than what the plate does in your memory. So that's gone in as a concrete slab, obviously, because it is a concrete slab. But I'm going to change it to grout. So what I might do, what I also do is I do different layers for grids. So I'll do grids first floor, second floor, third floor. I believe on the recent version of Advanced Steel, you don't need to draw the grids on every floor. They'll carry through on your drawings, which was an issue in the past. So I would generally just go to grids here and just do grids 1. and then grids 2, and just keep them to this first floor, second floor, and so on, and grids 3. Again, take a note of this and write it on one side, and then do it in your template, because this is something you're going to want to do. So at the start you're not going to think of this, but as you go you're going to want to keep adding things that you use every day, and don't put it off and say I'm going to do it next week, because you won't do it, and then every time you have to put in the layers each time, and it's a real pain. So even if you feel like it's better for you and you won't forget, just do it in that moment. You can go and open your template file and do. This is obviously not the template file. I drew this in to scale this wall, but you get the idea. So what I'm going to do now is I've copied all them. We have the base connections. We have a couple of connections here. We have this beam across here that we want to connect. So we're just going to connect this with a regular 2-clip connection, which we use here in America, which is clip angle, and then now I have a fresh install of advanced steel, so you can see we use TC bolts all the time here. You can see there's issues in here. There's all sorts of issues here. Like this cut on the top is not correct. This cut in the bottom is not correct because it's coming off this K value in here on this beam. So it's working off this value in here. Oh, sorry. So it's working off the value in here of this corner. So basically it's on the K value, so a cut is going to there, and then you have a 1/2 inch deep, so its radius is working its way in here. So we need to fix all this, and then we need to save it so the next time it'll come in the right way. So go to advanced joint properties and clip angle. 4x4x3/8 is good for me. Cut parallel doesn't really matter. 1/2 inch cut parallel, I don't need it right now, but it can be useful if you copy it to a different location where the beam is sloped, so it can help. So clip weld, I don't want to weld it, but you can add a weld there if you want. Top cope, so here's where you want to fix this. So let's have a look at this from an angle where we can see it. Now, you know what we can do to make this useful. So let me do this to show you. So let's do, there's a connection box here, right? So what we can do is we can go over here and add a box, 1 point, 2 points. So these are the 4 different, this is brilliant. These are so useful. The grid lines one is great because you can attach cameras to all these. So at joint box, click on that box. It's going to ask you the name. So I'm just going to put in clip angle. And we'll put in clip angle 1 just in case I have to put in the second one. What way do I want to look at that? I want to look at it this way. And that's it. Now we have this box here. When I double click on this, now the orientation gets messed up on me sometimes, and I hate that. It's really frustrating. So let me see. So deactivate. Oh, so I think it's because I have the other box on. Sorry. Let's turn this box off. You have to be careful not to have a couple of boxes on at the one time. And let's click on this one, or we can click here to activate, and there it is. And now pull this over, and now I want to look at this in the left direction. So here we go. So we'll have a look at this. So let's click on any element and advanced joint properties. Go to the top cope, and what I generally do, depending on the size of the beam, is you're going to have a 1/2 inch here or 3/4. So a lot of times 1/2 inch is a little tight here. So from the main flange, I'll do 3/4, and then not from the K distance. You can do from the inside of the main beam, which is good practice, so there's not a clash. But I like to do the inside of the secondary beam, so that it'll be the same as another beam that's making into a different size beam, if you know what I mean. So the chances of having things with the same number is higher. So inside of secondary beam, and then I want that to be 0.75 also. I'll make that 0.75. So that looks good to me. That's what I want. And I want to keep these same values if I have a double connection. So if you do a double connection, do your double connection and make sure you have the same values. The cope radius of 1/2 inch is good, so that's a radius in here. So because this is 3/4, if I put this as 1/2 inch, that's the minimum I can go before it starts cutting a radius up here. So I want this to be 0.75. On smaller beams, I'll make it 0.5. Bottom cope, I want to do the same thing, 0.75. K distance is inside of secondary, and I want that to be 0.75. It doesn't need to be that big, but it doesn't matter that it is that big, because you can see here there's plenty of room. So that's good. Bolt parameters, I want these to be TC bolts, and I want the bolt location at the main at the site, so it comes in automatically the right way. Horizontal bolts, I want them 2.5, that's good. 2.5, that's good. Vertical bolts, I want 3 inch down, I want 3 lines, 1.5" start of the clip, and 1.5" at the end of the clip, and 3 inches in between, that's good. Slotted holes, I don't want to slot holes, but if you do, you can slot at the main. Generally, sometimes you might slot in the secondary, and it's obviously harder to slot in a beam because you can punch a hole in the clips, but it would be advised if you're slotting a beam. In my experience, we would slot the beam on site just because it's hidden by the clip, and the inspector won't see it most likely. If you slot the clip, so if you slot the cleat, you can see it. He'll be able to loosen off one of them bolts and see it. Whereas if you do the beam, it's hidden underneath the clip, so you'd have to take the whole clip off to see it. So I know that's probably not going to bother you, but it might be something that you find interesting. Now you can shim these if you want. Then you go to the library, and there's a load of rubbish connections in here that I'm not sure anyone would use. Like, you can see that, so I clicked on that. So I want to back up. So I'll back up out of that, advanced joint properties. So what I'm going to do is go into the library. As far as I'm concerned, these are all rubbish. So I'm going to save the values, edit. You might want to keep these. I do not want to keep these. So I usually go in and delete, at least delete them. You don't need to keep really any connections. Just 2 or 3. You'll have specific ones for jobs, but after that job is finished, I advise doing your connections again, just so you know they're right all the time. You're not relying on something you did a year before. So what I'll do is I'll delete these down to there. Okay, save me some time. Now I didn't name this, so I've saved the values again by accident. Sorry, so I can delete that last one. And it's going to be, you can see a W12 being to a W12, so I'll just do W12. And a W12 is most likely going to be 3 bolts anyway, but I'll put in 3 bolts, and I'll delete the other one because I don't want them clashing with each other, right? Now I could have just copied the name, so could have just copied that name. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete them. Now, if you can see here, I would advise actually leaving some of these so you know what to do. So this one here is a question mark, or sorry, not question mark, a percentage. So that means that the second beam, this one is the secondary beam, and this one is the main beam. So I have got a W12 by 26 making into a W12 by 38. So the next time I have a W12 26 making into a W12 by 35, it's going to use this connection. But if I don't, it might go to this default connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the default connection. We can copy this again. So what we can do is, let's do OK, and let's do save values, edit. So now I have it twice, and I'm going to call this default. So now it'll default to this one. So you can default to this one. Now another tip is, I'm actually going to do a short video for this because this is quite useful. Bolts, alright. Bolts video. So take notes all the time, as I'm doing right now. Alright. So if you go in here and you go to edit values, what I was talking about, this percentage mark. So that basically means that any beam that receives any W10 will use this connection that he has here. So that's kind of what I want to do. So It's a little tricky to change it, but if we go in here, you have to click on this outside here and come in here, and I actually want this to be percentage, so it's actually a while since I've done this, so there you go. So I've changed that to percentage, so now any W12 by 26 that makes into it, but I want any W12 that makes into it. So go back here, click over here next to this, and put this in as any W12. And there. So now I've changed it. So it should work where if I have any W12 beam, make it into any beam, that it will bring in my connection, which is this one that I created here. These two are two rubbish ones. So, but it's useful. I'm going to leave these here for my short video so I can do a short video on this. Okay. Alright, so that's my connection. And now we can deactivate that box. And we can come back and we can create multiple connections of this in this across this line here. So what I'm going to do is I'll do the same thing. Go back up here. And you can do them one at a time. You can do them individually so they're not connected to each other. If you use this one, when you change one, the other ones will not change. So what I'll do is, let's do one that way. So I'm going to copy this. I'm sure most people know this already, but some beginners might not. Actually, we can see I never changed my bolts. So that's a bit of a pain. So I have to go back in. Advanced joint properties, so that's going to be a little bit of a pain. I did change the bolts, but I guess I changed them back by accident. Top cope, no, yeah, see this, when I changed this back, it changed to a totally different connection, so I've messed that up now, so I have to go and fix this again. Sorry, waste of time here, but I guess you'll get to see it twice without rewinding. So I'll just go through angle, cut parallel, I'll leave that on, weld, no, top cope. So I'm going to do 0.75, K distance, inside secondary, 0.75, just so you know inside secondary is in here in this point. I'm sure you know that. And inside secondary, 0.75. Okay, and bolt parameters, TC, okay, horizontal bolts 2.5, 2.5, okay, vertical 3, okay, slotted holes, we don't want any, shims, no, and that's good. So go to library, save values, edit values, and then I'm going to delete this because I messed it up, and I'm going to delete this because I messed it up, and I'm going to do, I should have just copied the text there at least, but I'm going to do W12 3 bolts, and then I will come in here and do the same thing as I did before, just so I don't have to go back and do it later. Sometimes you'll be tempted to not do this, but I would recommend just doing it and get it done, because you'll procrastinate, you'll never do it, the next time you'll say the same thing, so that's okay. And I'm also just going to save it as a default, so I'm going to save the values, edit, and default, just to bore you all even more. Okay, so we're good to go. So let's get out of this quickly. Let's open this. So what you can do if you want is you can even stretch this the whole way across, right? Because these all are in a line. So, and now I can activate this, and now it's looking in at them all, and it'll give us a better view of it, right? So you can keep moving these boxes, which I find the best thing about them. So I would also change back the presentation of that beam, because that's also some extra lines in there that are going to slow down your work a little bit. So set that back to normal. This is what I use to change the behavior, or the visibility, or the, what's it called? The display type of the beam. This is what it toggles through these. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to connection. I'm just going to copy a connection that's different. It's not going to be controlled by the original. Okay, So this is one connection. This is the same connection, but they're not connected. So now let's connect this one, and let's do multiple of these. So we're going to connect to this beam, and we're going to connect this, all these. So let's connect all these to it, and you can see they're all connected. So that's great. Now if you want to go in and change one of these, you can see you have to upgrade to primary connection if you want to do that. If you want it, or else you need to go back to the first one. So if you change this to upgrade to the primary connection, then that is your primary connection. So you can switch it, so that's really, really handy. So now what we can do is, if I go in here and go back to the original one, Advanced Joint Properties, you can see this box is grayed out because that is the original one. And if I go to vertical bolts and change this to 2, you can watch, they'll all change except for the first one because that is not connected to that. So if you mistakenly forget to connect one, you can just delete that one. You can get this connection, or what you can do actually is transform elements. So if I come back here, let's go to, I always have trouble finding this. It's in here somewhere. Clash, no, it's here somewhere. Let me find it. Transform properties. Add that to your quick access toolbar. That's a handy one. So pick on this and pick the one that you want to change, and then pick the one you want to change it to. And now if I go back in here, Advanced Joint Properties, just to see if they're connected, vertical bolts, 3. Now it has changed that connection, but it has not made that part of that group. So what you really want to do is you want to delete it. You want to select this, go back in here, use this green button to copy connections with a, I guess what's it called, copy connections, create joint in a joint group, even easier. Alright, so that's that. So that's those connections in. So I've got some columns to do. They're just base plates again. I like these gable wall end connections, so I have to connect this up to this column. So what I'm going to do is, there's 2 different ways of doing these, and I probably do it the wrong way, but I like to use the gable connection. So if I go in here to the beam connections, I can never find anything, sorry, so it's got to be here somewhere. Yeah, so obviously I don't have my favorites set up properly yet. So pick the rafter and then pick the beam, and it'll come in with this joint here that looks terrible. So that joint is not even close to what I want. This one is one that I have done earlier. So just go to Advanced Joint Properties. I can upgrade that to primary. Go to the library. It's not saved, so let's save that. Edit that, and sometimes I'll just put in the name of the job, usually in capitals, so I'll know it's mine, but I'm not typing it out again. So what I can do now is I can go into this one here. What I should do is create another joint box here, right? Because we can't really see it properly. So what I'll do is create another box, which is pretty easy to create. And I'm going to call it column top will do for now. Really not too good with the naming of these. So double click on this and we can see that's what we're getting. That's not enough for me to see. I'd like to see a little more. And you can now use the transfer properties on this, or you can just go into it. Now I can't remember what way that joint was set up, and it's a different size column. So what I'll do is just go into the library and just switch it to it and see what we got. So you can see it's moved. It's put in stiffeners that I like to have in there, but this distance is the problem. So let's see, it's a 5x5 tube. I believe the other post was the smallest there is, which is a 4-inch post. So plates are 1.5 inch out. Bolt distances 7. So I want that to be 8. And it's got the 1.5 inch on the outside, so that should be good. So we can always save that as well if you want, and you can save that for the HSS. So you could just go back in here, advanced joint properties, library, save values, edit, and you could just call it ROM HSS because there's only one side of HSS on this job, so that's good. So what I'm going to do now is, so like I said, I'm not going to get into the connections too much, so you can see how to copy them around. I have some in here. I got some moment connections I have to do up here, which I guess I'll show you one other thing, and then I'll probably just finish up the modeling, and then I'll record when I'm putting in the cameras and all that. So let me see. I got these all got to be moment connections here. So let me just do one from scratch. I have some in already, but let's do one from scratch, and then we can do another one over here. All right, so we'll do one from scratch. Let on we're first time users. So let's go to a shear plate. So first I want to add the shear plate. So you can see this shear plate has come in. It's not the way I want it. It has this punch mark, which is very useful, but a lot of clients don't want it. I do advise them to have it. Another thing that is a pain is advanced steel comes in with these two set, straight cut web and parallel cut, and a lot of times that will place 2 cuts on the end of your beam, and this will come up in a clash check. So be careful, be aware, that's going to come up in a clash check probably. So I can cut parallel, I can cut, should I cut parallel? Maybe I should cut parallel. So you can cut parallel because then you can copy this to a different location. So let me cut a parallel, and let's go from main flange. Do I want it to be 0.5? I'll do 0.75. Now there is no flange involved here, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to go back to the beam cut. I want this to be 0.75 as well. For a smaller beam I would just do 0.5. So that just is the cut back here. So let's go to plates and bolts. I'm happy with it on that side. The other side I'll put on the other way. Now it depends how easy it is to put these beams in. We have to be careful. So I'll create this connection and I might need to change it. So bolts and holes, TC bolts, create marking. Alright, so I turned off the create marking. I have the bolts in right. I want to do horizontal bolts. I want this to be 2.5 because I like 4-inch clips instead of 3.5, which come in automatically. Most clients like the 4-inch clips, and if you go to a 0.75 cutback, you need to have a 4-inch clip. Sometimes they'll slot these holes. Let's not slot them, and then that's good. So then go to properties, library. You can name this if you want. Save values, and let me just edit this. Hold on a minute. I just have to pause this for a second. Hello, I'm back. Sorry about that. Had the family coming home. Alright, so let's get back to this, and I'm going to do W12, and I'll just not worry about changing these values in here right now because you know how to do that already. 2 of them are called W12, but they have different values here, different columns, okay? So this is now recorded. This is the type of clip angle I like, or the type of shear tab I like for that. So now we're going to do moment connection. So moment flange plates. And if you want to see examples, you can come over here and it shows you what's going on. And there, so moment flange plates. and we're going to pick the beam, or sorry, the column and the beam. And we can see we got a plate coming in here, right? It's not kind of what you would expect looking at that, because it's showing you the other flange. So this is what I want. So I'm not going to get into this too much because I don't know the exact way he wants these connections. The engineer has not supplied us with really any information at all, which is kind of the norm. So what I'm going to do is the plate type is, see, a ½ inch might be too big here, or a ½ inch might be good. I'm just going to back it down a little. The guy wants me to keep the sizes as small as I can to see what we can get away with. So number of bolts, 4. I don't think we need 4 bolts here on this. I'm going to guess we need 3. I'm not an engineer, so starting distance I'll put in as, I want it to come out here a little bit, because what I'm going to do is go back to the plate shape. I'm going to put it as a polygonal. So polygonal. I'm going to have it like that. And I want to change the bolts now before I forget to TC bolts. Now the problem we're going to have with this is trying to put the beam in there, right? So if this wasn't moment connections, they'd be able to sneak it past the clips almost. So you're going to have one on either end. So that's the problem you're going to have. So you're going to have to go back and edit that shear plate. So what I'll do is I'll move these bolts out another little bit, another inch maybe. Starting distance of 4. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. And now we're going to go back to this other plate, this other shear plate, and advanced joint properties and plate and bolts. So the plate type, I want flange both. So now it's gone up to both of those plates, but my beam is too long, right? So let's see, check our cutback on our beam. Our cutback is 3/4. So what we can do is, let's go in here and just have a look at this. And let's check from here out. 2.5. So if I come back 2 inches, it'll give me enough room, because I'll have 2 inches on either side and I can slide it in there. So I think I'll chance 2 inches. And cuts and stiffeners, cut back 2 inches. Now your bolts back, let's go down and check our bolts. The horizontal distance for the bolts is 2.5. So that means it's only a ½ inch inside the beam, because the beam was 2 inches. So I need it to be at least 1.5 inches, but better to be 2 inches. So I'm going to make this 4 inches. Now you can see my plate is pretty good, but it's not perfect. And we can see that my beam is still a little bit too long, right? Because it's hitting on the top and the bottom. So what we're better off to do is maybe make that beam a little, shorten it out a little bit, right? So let's go back a little more. If we do 5 inches there, and we'll do, as I don't want them to have to start fabricating, I can have it where I guess I just cut the inside of that beam. So I'll show you how to do it, even though it's probably not what I'm going to do. So you can see the beam. So what we can do is cuts and stiffeners, top cope, cut and flush, and you can see it's cut and flush on both sides. And I just want to cut and flush on the, I'll guess, left side. No, I was wrong. As usual, I was wrong the first time. So you can cut that beam like that. It's a bit of work though. I'm not sure if they really want to do that. They're probably not going to want to do that, right? So you can do that in top and bottom if you want. So go to the bottom, do the same thing, cut and flush. And left side, right side, I can't remember now what it was. Right side there. So you can do it like that if you want. But not great, right? So you're probably better off to just cut the beam all the way back, right? He's going to say that's going to be easier for him to fabricate. He's going to have less beam. It should be fine. So what I'll do is just go back to auto cope, top cope, auto cope, and back to beam cut. And if I go 3 inches, so I got 3 inches, that's back inside there. So what I'll do is we might do 2.5. That's a little tight, so it's probably going to be 2.75, right? So let's do 2.75, and then the bolts in the web there, horizontal bolts. So I have 2.75, and I'd like to do 1.75, so that's 4.5, right? Is it 4.5? 2.75 and 3.75. Something like that, right? And then you can just check it. Just go to your dimension. If your mat stinks, just go in here and pick this and this, and we can see that the Z direction is 1.75 inches, which is good. Alright, so now the plate just is a bit scrappy looking, right? So we're going to have to clean up the plate a little bit. So let's clean up this plate. So if you come in here, inner radius and corners 0.25 or 0.5, and then we want to do the plate shape, default, straight 0.5, sorry, 0.75 probably in there, so we don't get hit the welds on this. Now you can also bevel these ones, so you can bevel this plate maybe if that's what's wanted. So what I'm going to do is, oh, I didn't want to do that, sorry. I just propagated the joints, which I don't like. Now it's going through my model, trying to find, it's going through the model trying to find where I could put these joints in. So it's going to put these joints in, but I feel like it can't be trusted, so I like to spend a couple of minutes putting them in myself manually. So, because I've done this before and I've deleted one of them and there's another joint underneath it, so just be careful with the propagate joints. If you click on this part, it's not available. If you click on the box, propagate joints will put this joint in wherever Advanced Steel thinks is a good idea, which is not really a good idea. Now, it only puts them in where it's visible on the model, so that is useful, but I don't feel like it's enough time saved to be worth the trouble of going back and checking everything. So what I was trying to do was double click on this, and we can see this is the flange moment plate. Go to the library, save values, edit, so just in case I lose it. Now if you go to another computer and bring this model, this library is on your computer, it's not in the model. Well, I don't know why I keep trying to call this something else. That's the W8 column, so I'll just put W8. Okay, alright, and then I don't know what happened there. That just moved for some reason. And that was strange. Distance along. I don't know what happened there, but that just jumped, I feel like. And those bolts are way too far along now. So the starting distance of that moved for some reason. Let me just back up. I want to see what just happened there. Yeah, so that's where it was, and now when I saved the joint, it moved. So let's just see if that happened again. Oh, that's unusual. I don't know what happened there, but it moved, so now it's in the right place. Alright, so we've saved that joint, and now I want to save this other one, advanced joint, library, and what I'll do is save this as ROM moment. Okay, so those are both saved. So now what I was going to do is show you how to create a custom. So this is two different connections. So if I want to copy this as one connection, I probably wouldn't bother. I would just do the two connections around. But if you want to delete these joint boxes, come in here and turn on the features, because you need to be able to see the features. Alright, so we want to copy everything here. So if we come in here to our selection set and click on this one, we can see that there we go, we have everything connected, right? So everything is good to go. So let's go back. So we want to create a custom connection of this. I wouldn't do it with this one probably, but it'll show you how to do it. So just come down here to your third tab, which is custom connections. I don't use these much either, to be honest with you. I probably should start using them a little more and figure them out, but I generally just draw in my connections and then delete the boxes and then copy them. So I'm going to come in here and it's going to say, what do I want? I want two beams, and select input beam. So a column and a beam. Hold on, I did that wrong, sorry. Two beams, select it and then right click, and then select this one and right click. Name this as moment, and it's W12 to W8 column. What type of connection does it look like? It's kind of like that, or kind of like that. It's a little short there, so we'll call it that one. We'll come in here and we'll say this is the column, and this is the beam or rafter. I'll just call it the beam. And then you want to select your elements. So you want to select everything in here. So you can just box around this. Now if you box from here, just be careful, because you're not going to get this green feature box, which is the cut of this beam. At the start it seems stupid, but it's perfectly makes sense. I mean, you need to copy it if you want it. If you didn't have to pick it, then what's the point in copying it, right? So maybe you don't want to copy it, so it doesn't want to do it automatically for you. So there are all the parts I want. I'm going to right click, and that looks good, and then I'm going to close it. So you can see the one with the blue box then is my connection. You can double click to get back into it and change it, change the name, whatever you need to do. So for now what I'm going to do is copy it. So I'm going to go here. Now if you want this to be available in other models, you need to save it in a specific location inside your advanced steel folder. Not going to do that right now because it's not really that important. I don't advise doing that. I advise creating these project per project, because it doesn't take long to create a connection, a couple of minutes, and you make sure you have the right one for you. So I'm going to select on it, okay, and then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select the column as it asked me for, and now it's asking me to select the beam, and there you go. It's brought in my connection. I want to allow object modification, or maybe I don't, so let's allow it. I like to click on allow, and now we have our connection. Now sometimes you need to create these connections for either side, so we're going to test it out. So let's try and put it in over here on the opposite side, which can be an issue sometimes. Now I might need to create one anyway, because I might want the shear plate to be on the opposite side, just for erection kind of purposes. So let's go back here to our selection, and let's select this column, And you can see it has worked. All my intelligent connections have come over and they are welded to that column. So that is good news. Now if we click on this, let's see what happens if we try and copy this. Sorry, we will use this one here to keep it attached. So let's just see what happens. So we'll do column. Oh, you don't need to right click, sorry. So let's pick on this, like here. It's going to ask me to select connection part. No, I did wrong there again. So just read the commands. I'm not reading them. Select connection part. I selected it. Now right click. Now it's asking me to select the column. So follow the prompts down here or on screen, as you can see. And then it's asking me to select the beam. And now it has put it in. Now just be careful when it switches sides. Sometimes the holes get messed up a little bit. But that looks good. And it's flipped it over to the other side for me, which is perfect. So it works good for this connection. It doesn't work good for every connection. So I will actually use this now going forward. You can see I have some other weird ones here where these beams are just going to be welded like this. I'm just going to copy the shear or the clip connections from down there. I have some weird connections where I'm probably going to have to add plates on top of this beam here to join in these ones. So let's have a look right now. See what the model looks like. I have one of these ends done up like this. This is probably what he wants to go with, something pretty simple, hoping the engineer will say it's okay. You can see I have a beam in here. This beam is solely for the purpose of modeling in these shear connections. I cannot delete it because it will then delete those connections. Actually it won't, but sorry, it won't. It'll just break those connections. So I don't want to break those connections yet. Now in here I need to edit these plates, and I'm going to edit one plate. These beams are going to be offset slightly by 3/32, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. I don't know, just be careful with your modeling. I would say you can see my UCS is all jacked up, so try and stay in worlds mostly, and you know, break down your model into different parts if you want. Use these. I don't use the structures. I don't use levels really. Levels can be useful because I can set this as a level and I can put these beams in all at this level and then they won't move. And if I just go in and change the level, so just creating levels here. So if I put this level at 10 feet and then activate this and then draw in the beams at 10 feet, they will stay at 10 feet. But then if I go in and change the level to 12 feet, all those beams will automatically move to 12 feet. So it is quite useful in that sense. But I think it's kind of just something that's not really needed. So see, I just created a level there and now it's turned off everything above that level. So I don't want a level. I don't use structures. It's something that I might actually venture into and have a look around and record just to see if I can figure it out. Over here I need to add some connections. I need to cut the concrete out for these. So I still have hours of modeling, and then I'll get back to it and I'll probably record with putting in the cameras and that for doing my approval drawings. I'll output them and I'll maybe edit some drawing styles and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into cleaning up all my drawings in a video, but because these drawing styles I haven't set up in this version. So what I'll do is I'll go as far as I can go without getting too stressed out, and then I'm just going to go back in, because if you go in here, if I go into my advanced steel, sorry, apparently I opened this a couple of times. If I go into advanced steel here, you can see I have my USA folder saved from yesterday. So as soon as I finish recording this, I'll switch back over and then I'll have all my own drawing styles and everything, and it'll be back to my old way. So basically Okay, I hope the video was useful today, and I will continue with this one. I know I've done some other videos that I haven't continued with, and it's just takes up some time, and I just try to do it with some of those other projects were projects that I'm not actually doing, and I'm just making up a project, and I really don't have time to do that. So this is kind of just a project that I have to do for work, and I'm hoping that it'll be able to help some people out, because I know it is kind of hard to get learning. So, all right, good luck, and some feedback would be appreciated if anyone gets to this point in the video. I guess give me a like, let me know what you think, and thank you for watching. All right, take care. Bye bye.